This video is directed towards the graduate students, although the undergraduate students in the class might find it interesting as well. The graduate students will be doing an indexing project in addition to all the other assignments of the class. And this video is going to kind of walk them through an example of the project to get an idea of what they might want to do. Everyone will come up with a different idea, and they'll all end up with something that results in a map that has places that are ranked in terms of how good or how bad they are. In other words, it could be the most livable city, for one thing, or the most dangerous census tract in the city of Chicago. To do this, they're going to be needing to apply many of the tools that we're learning in the class. Now, I'm going to walk through a project as an example. The first step of this project is going to come up with the idea, something that you're interested in. The example that I'm using, I think, is best place for parents to retire to. You know, it might be something personal like that, or it might be something more professional, but that's going to be your choice. And then what makes a place good or bad in that regard that is so important that if something doesn't meet that criteria, we're going to throw it out. Okay, by this time in the class, you probably already been doing a little bit of work with selections, and this will be an application of selection. So in other words, there's going to be some kind of criteria. It could be nearness to ocean. Maybe, okay, let's say that if you're more than 50 miles from the coast, you don't even want to look there. Or it might be something that's selection by attribute. It might be, you have to live in an area that is highly educated. Okay, then we look at census data, which we'll be doing in the class as well. First of all, so we're looking at the most important things, the things at which there's a threshold after which we're no longer going to look at it. We're going to unselect those things. And there'll be three that I'm looking for. I'm going to want you to do three requirements that you apply selections to discard areas that don't meet that criteria. Another question is, what kind of areas are we working with? And this decision has to be made early on. Are we looking at census tracts? Are we looking at counties, states, countries, points? Are we looking at metropolitan statistical areas? So the unit of analysis, the unit of final analysis will be important to determine early on, because that's the unit into which we're going to be moving all the data to finally rank those places. So after the requirements, and we've discarded, say, counties that are too far from the coast, or tracts that don't meet the income criteria, or what have you, then we start to work with preferences. We need three more criteria. Say, for example, you've thrown out all the counties that are so far from the coast that you don't want to look at them, or the municipalities that are so far from the coast that they're too far. But you still feel that the closer to the ocean, the better. So within that band near the ocean, the closer you are to the ocean, the better. Then that's a preference. That's not a requirement. That's a preference. But many of the preferences will be new, and hopefully you'll have quite a few new ones, and you should have at least three preferences as well as three requirements. So these preferences have to be manipulated in the table. Remember the attribute table. These numbers that you're representing have to be sorted so the lowest number to the highest number represents worst to best, or vice versa. It could be best to worst. If you're looking at, say, percent in poverty, you want to go into an area that has the least amount of poverty, the smallest number for percent in poverty, the best, the highest number, the worst. But whatever you do, they have to be, one end has to be the best and the other end has to be the worst. Sometimes that takes a little bit of manipulation in Excel. So you end up with three columns that are sorted that way, and then you apply a formula that we'll get to in a bit that combines these in a very fair way, allowing you to weight some of these criteria more or less than others, using your own kind of subjective feeling about them. And here's an example. A best location for parents' retirement unit of analysis will be county, so that's another decision that's going to be made. Now, in the conceptual stage, you just think, brainstorm, what would be good for them during retirement. They want to be near hospitals, they're in a higher educated area, they want to live near their family so they can visit, they might want to have a better climate and near an airport to travel, or what have you, all those things that you think about. You're not going to use them all, but try to find the most important ones. And then those would fall into the requirements. So good climate. All right, and near the major airport, these are really, really important. I'm just using two for an example, but you need three. So let's say good climate. Well, that's so important that we need to throw out all the places that are, all the counties that are not in good climates. That raises a couple of questions. What is a good climate? So you study a little bit about climates, and I came up with 3 that would be adequate. You can easily look at a map and say, these are the 3 climates that I'm interested in, and so then you select those 3, and any county that's inside those 3 will be selected, and everything else will be discarded. Near a major airport, well, operationalize that too. What do you mean by near? Well, driving time to a major airport, 50 miles, 100 miles, whatever you think is appropriate, throw that in there, and then if the county is beyond that distance, it won't still be in the game after you apply that requirement. And of course, selecting counties and place and polygons is a little tricky, because if a county is partially within 100 miles and partially not within 100 miles, do you want it or not? So there are a number of ways that you can approach that. Okay, and then we move down into the preferences, and I've only listed 2 here, but you'll have 3. And now this is where things are better or worse than. So nearer the beach, the better. Then we measure a distance, a mile distance from the coast for every single county that we're looking at. And the smaller that number, the better. But none of them are discarded, so that'll be fine. The smaller the number to the bigger number, the worst to the best. Educated area, same thing, least educated to the most educated, and so you have to define what do you mean by education? The number of people without a high school degree, that's education. Or the number of people with a college degree or better, that's education. I'm sorry, usually this is a percentage of people with a high school degree, or the percentage of people with a college degree, because otherwise you're just going to identify your heavily populated counties. So these are the kinds of issues that we'll be working through. We go through the term, then finally in the results you can apply that formula and come up with the top. For example, maybe these are the top 10 places. Make a map with call-out boxes highlighting the places, and then with a little analysis explaining why these were so good. This one's lower educated, but gosh, it's really, really near the coast. That's why it came out so high on the scale. So that's the kind of thing we'll be working with. I hope you'll find it fun, and we'll be talking about that throughout the term.